This is Glambition Radio, episode number 283, Doing Business Backwards with Emily Aarons.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Glambition Radio.
Glambition Radio.
Glambition Radio.
Glambition Radio.
Glambition Radio.
Glambition Radio.
Welcome to Glambition Radio. I am your host, Allie Brown. I'm an entrepreneur, mentor, investor, and founder of The Trust, the modern premier network for 7- and 8-figure women leaders. I love thinking big, doing different, and exploring ideas that disrupt the status quo, especially when it comes to women, because we are creating the new models for leadership, business success, making money, and changing the world. And hey, we're doing it with style. So let's go. Happy spring. I am back from my creative strategy workshop last week. What an incredible, intimate group of women business owners we had in the room. We had a lot of fun. We were using examples from big business, small business, Kanye West, everything. And I have to say the content of that particular workshop is one of my favorites. When people can put different frameworks on how they view opportunities, challenges, flip their thinking, come out the door and know 20 different ways to do something instead of one. It's how we need to be now, ladies. These skills, creative thinking, curiosity, agility, all these human skills are going to be the most important things in the future. So I love doing these smaller workshops. If there is a topic that you would wish to do a deep dive on with me in the room, please reach out. Let us know. Be like, I wish Allie would do a workshop on this or that. These are my favorite things. So please reach out to my team at info@alliebrown.com. Okay? Now, our guest today, Emily Aarons, was at the Creative Strategy Workshop. I was extremely honored to have her in the room. And this show could not be better timed, this particular episode, because of what she does. It's all about making the quantum leaps in your business without more hustle. She is best known for helping entrepreneurs tap into their intuitive powers. That's how I first heard about her, through a client of mine. Then I heard a few women talking about her, and I said, this woman sounds amazing. Why don't we get her on the show? Because we need to talk about energy and the energy of how we do business. Ladies, this is a gift we naturally have, and we have stamped it out. It is time to open this up again and reclaim this beautiful power we already have within us. And Emily's going to help us today. Quick reminder, the show is sponsored by The Trust, the modern premier network for 7- and 8-figure women entrepreneurs. If you or another female leader you know is craving more powerful connections, more elevated conversation, and a modern platform for connecting with other high-performing women globally, visit jointhetrust.org. Come talk with us. We've got great events coming up, both live in person and virtual, going on all the time. Our next live one, if you want to come meet us here in Phoenix, is in May. We have nearly 50 members now, all multi-million-dollar women entrepreneurs, incredible group. And I have to say, the biggest comment I get from women who join us for the first time, they say things like, I have never been in a room with no posturing whatsoever and so much generosity from such accomplished women. They are just, it's like they've landed on a new planet. And that's what I wanted to create, a new planet. And here we are. Jointhetrust.org. Reach out, talk with my team. We'd love to tell you more, give you dates for meetings, answer your questions, and see if it's a fit for you. All right? Jointhetrust.org. Quick shout out to 2 reviews my team pulled for me from Apple Podcasts, because I haven't been doing this in a while, and I want to really give a big thank you to those of you who take the minute to do this. I know this is a little out of your way, but hey, pay it forward, help other women discover this intelligent conversation that we're having on Glambition Radio. Che Marville from Canada writes, Allie, you nailed it. Your solo podcast, especially recently, was right on the money about creativity. Somewhere along the road of life, most of us learned creativity is the sole domain of artists and a road to poverty. It's a really good point. There is creativity in all 7.8 billion of us. Is that how many of us there are? Wow. And the road to more is born of creativity. Love that you're always evolving and sharing the possibilities. Thank you. Keep going. Thank you. And then Emma Smith from the US writes, inspiring, educational, and empowering. I've learned from and loved Allie for years and been a listener from her very first podcast. It's always inspiring, real, invigorating, and empowers one to not only be your next best, but what you thought was not possible. So appreciate you and thankful you always have a fresh, new, contemporary teaching for the times. Leave me a review. I would love to share it on the air. I so appreciate it, ladies. Thank you so much. Now, get ready for a fantastic conversation with Emily Ahrens. Emily, where are you today?
I am in Georgetown, Massachusetts.
And you have a little farm, I was reading.
Yes, I have a small, what's called a hobby farm. It's basically 3 acres. We grow produce, but we have young puppy Belgian Malinois. We have chickens, ducks, and little goats. So we keep ourselves busy around here. We grow all kinds of produce. And the other day, one of my newest neighbors, she's like, so what do you grow? Name it. We grow it. We have everything.
That's awesome. My kids would not want to leave your property. They want a little farm.
Yeah, most people don't want to leave. And I never take it for granted. Every single day when I wake up and I see my big red barn in the backyard and the sun comes up, I'm just like, this is the best life. This is so beautiful. And people do want to stay here for a long time. And we end up educating a lot of people because, most people don't know where their food comes from and how to recognize it outside of a grocery store or even a farmer's, like a farm stand. So it's really a lot of educating people of where food comes from, how it grows. There's 1,000 questions we always love to answer. So I tease my husband because he is the most extroverted extrovert, and folks will come to our farm stand to buy like a little basil plant and they'll leave with like a trough of all kinds of veggies and maybe like other kinds of food with recipes from him. And they've already stayed for 2 hours. I'm like, okay, so this is good. We love this. We like it.
I love that. I have like a secret homestead fantasy. Somehow I feel like my life would be easier, or that's my way to hide. Maybe that's what it is. I think that's...
it's not uncommon. And I feel like there is a trend for more female landowners. I think it's kind of coming together and more people are being drawn towards land ownership and living off the land in a simpler way of life. It's definitely got its appeal.
I am very excited to hear more about your background. I got to know you a little bit over the past year. I first heard your name, I believe, from my client, Tanya Dalton. And she was just saying how awesome you were. And I'm like, well, this sounds interesting. Let me check her out. And I have so many questions that it's great to finally get you on the show because I'd love to, I'm aware of what you do and everyone will understand that. But, how did this all start? Like, were you always a very intuitive child as you were growing up? Or was there this one lightning moment where you suddenly had these superpowers? What happened? Give us a little backstory into your intuitive career.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to laugh like, oh yeah, I was struck by lightning. No, it wasn't that. It's insane. Growing up, I was always intuitive, and I feel like everyone kind of is born with it. We are all born with these intuitive abilities, but for some of us, they need to be worked on a little bit. So I like to compare it to like 6-pack abs, where we all have the same abdominal muscles, but some of us just have to work for it a little harder.
That's a good metaphor because it's under there, right? We know they're there. The capability's there.
Okay. Yes, for sure. But for me, I really didn't think I had anything special growing up. If things did occur to me, it was typically brushed off by an adult saying like, no, that didn't happen, or you didn't see or feel or sense that. And so I learned to not trust in my instincts, which I feel like most people are like that. We kind of brush it off and go towards the logical side of our brain instead of our intuitive side. And however, I always knew there was something a little bit odd about me. I look back at my kindergarten workbook and I did this drawing of how I want to be a healer to help people. And I said I wanted to be a doctor like my dad so I can help people. And I've always known at a young age that I had that calling, but it really didn't start to develop until later. I grew up in Northern California in Palo Alto, and there was a short period where we rented out one of the rooms in my house for somebody, and she happened to be a massage therapist. And that was my first real exposure to somebody doing any kind of healing arts. And even though my father was a physician, he was still very open to healing work. And so was my mom. And they had Reiki practitioners and they had acupuncturists. And actually, I was born, fun fact about me, I was born cesarean section, but my mother didn't even have a local anesthetic. She had acupuncture needles to help with the pain. I know.
Sorry.
Sorry for the visual.
As a mom who's had twins via C-section, I'm like, okay.
Yep. So my older brother was C-section, and my mother felt very disconnected from the birth experience. And so she had been working at the hospital as a speech pathologist and connected with an acupuncturist and said, hey, I would like to be a little bit more present with this next birth. So that's how it all got arranged. I've still yet to hear of anybody else who was born this way. So I've questioned my mom about
never
200 times. Like, are you sure you did that? So yeah, I came into this world. I chose to come into this world through really unique means. But in high school, I mean, I was earning money through small jobs, and I would be buying books on acupuncture and homeopathy and natural medicine and crystals. Like, I was a total weirdo from a very young age. I was always drawn to the healing arts. So it just naturally developed. And then after high school, I did go to learn how to be energy healer and massage therapist. And I started to do advanced trainings from there on.
Okay. So right out of high school, you started, looking toward this as a career.
Oh, yeah. I knew in high school. And actually, before graduating high school, I was like, you know what? I'm going to have a business one day. And all these people, they're going to go to college. And I'm just going to be like laughing because I have my own business. I don't know why.
And you still are.
I was so confident in myself. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to have a business. It's great. And I did. I remember my 5th year high school reunion, people just graduated. I had a business. I'd won a small business competition, and like I didn't have much to show for it. I was very broke, but I was moving towards that direction of being a business owner and doing it professionally. Yeah.
Wow. See, I think if I had the inclination to own a business, I may have skipped college as well. Do you know what I mean? But I just had that track in front of me, like everyone around me was doing the college and then you get the job thing. And then looking back, that's why I was so unhappy and always felt so weird too. Mm-hmm. I should have just embraced my weirdness. That's another call.
Yeah. Well, I think that was how my life always went. I did things backwards because after I got my certifications, I then went to college and I did it backwards. I thought I was trying to catch up to all my friends who were almost graduated, and I was trying to catch up, and I was working full time, and I was trying to go through college, and I was really juggling a lot of different things, living on my own, running a business, being on Dean's List. I was doing a lot, but I think I did it the way I needed to do it, and I wouldn't change it.
Now, why did you decide to go back to college?
I went to college because I knew I wanted to get serious about running a business. And so I went back to study business and public relations. And it was really kind of interesting because as I was in these college classes, my professors would use me as a real life example of this marketing technique, this PR pitch, or whatever it was. And I remember having to take some of my teachers aside, like, I appreciate this, but also I'm here to be a student. So could we just not highlight me every class? Because it's kind of embarrassing.
Yeah. Okay. So then you got out of school, and then what?
I got out of school, and well, at the time I graduated college, I had my business for already a couple of years, and I had business partners, and I sold my shares of my business to my partners and went out on my own. We had some major differences. I wanted to grow the business. They wanted to keep it this like small town little thing. And so we had to go our other direction. We had to split. And so I did my own thing for a while. And then I realized I was really suffering. And at the time, I really would have called myself a broke healer, because I was hustling. I was doing anything I could for $1, chair massage, corporate massage. I would go to events and conventions. I got my yoga teacher certification years later, and I was just trying anything I could to earn money, but I was always trading my time for dollars. And I while I had this calling inside of me, like, you're here to do so much more, you're here to be more, I couldn't figure out like how to do that because I was using these old models that were just keeping me sort of stagnant. And I started going to a corporate job. I got a corporate big girl job while doing healing work on the side. And I was kind of back and forth with, I'm a healer, I'm a big girl. I want the benefits, but I also need to do this work. And I finally, about 10 years ago, I just said, no, I'm not going to do this corporate thing at all. I'm going full on into healing. And I knew that that was my path, even though it wasn't making much money. And fast forward to about 6 years ago, a little bit, around 6 years ago, I had my first son, Tristan, and I was still doing in-person healing work at a small, like 100-foot square foot studio. And I was like killing myself. I went back to work postpartum, like 10 weeks after I had him. I was just at my breaking point and I was praying for a miracle. I was praying for a shift. I knew I needed to serve at a higher level. I just had no idea how to get there. And it started to shift for me. And slowly but surely, I started to realize if I wanted something to change in my life, in my business, in my income, I needed to make some dramatic changes, which meant stop doing everything you're doing, basically. And stop listening to outsiders and stop taking this person's advice on this course or that podcast and like taking everything from outside of you as what you should do. And I started to listen to what was going on inside of me. And I had been doing energy healing for so long, at 15 plus years at that point, but I hadn't applied that ancient wisdom to my business until I basically just like was like, my hands are in the air. Like, I can't do this anymore. This isn't working. And I started to use my own meditation practice and to connect within myself, connect with my higher self, with my guidance to start to develop my business from that place. And within the year of doing that, I 10x'd my revenue. It was like, I mean, you say that, I can say that now, but in the process of it, it didn't look like much. It was a monthly, slow, incremental shift. That first year, it was 2017, I made $1,300 that month. And then by March, I was having, $3,000 months. And I remember that specifically in March because my mom came to visit and she basically said, you got to quit. You can't keep doing this work. You got to be a mom and, you got to stop focusing so much on your work. And I'm like, I don't know who you're talking to. I've never been the person who wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. I always had this calling that I was here to do more. And I basically showed her my QuickBooks. I'm like, listen, what I'm doing is starting to make a big impact and make a difference in people's lives. And it's really making a difference in mine. And I think this year is going to be one of my biggest years of my life. So I can't stop now. And that's exactly what happened. I had finally hit that coveted 6-figure mark by the end of the year. I'd passed it actually. And she couldn't believe that I made such a huge shift in such a short period of time. And it was truly in listening to my intuition and starting to trust the messages to take the next step forward. And it led to quantum leaps and huge levels of innovation.
Now let's back up to kind of big picture for a minute for everyone listening. Let's explain what energy healing really is, how everything is energy, and how you use that in your work.
Yeah.
If that's a good place to go before we go into more specifics around the place I want to go after that, just to give you an idea, is talking about how so many of us are spiritual people at heart, but then there's business, right? Like we have it, then there's the business on the side, and we, without even realizing it, just approach it in this whole different way than who we are and how we even live our lives. So, but first, why don't you give this, grand explanation for everyone listening who may not be familiar with these modalities?
Yeah, this is where I love to geek out about this. So we're all pretty much familiar with the anatomy chart, like the physical musculatures, the bones. And most people are familiar with the chart of the energy system, not the whole system, but the chakra system. So that like person with the rainbow little bubbles over each part of the body going in a straight line up and down. And so similarly to the physical anatomy chart, our energetic chart, our energetic alignment is not in the exact ideal all the time. So like my body, my energy field, they may look one way in the traditional chart, but in reality, my body and energy field look totally different. So what that beautiful Buddha seating person looks like with the rainbows going up and down is this perfection. And our energetic body is in exact alignment with our physical body in our endocrine field, our endocrine system. So exactly where you see those little bubbles of light is exactly where our endocrine system is located. So there's 7 main chakras, there's 7 main endocrine glands. And so what people don't usually know is that our energetic body is rooted in our physiology. So when we experience stress, strain, anxiety, overwhelm, exhaustion, you name it, that stress imprints in our field as well. And that can create stagnation. It can create blocks, tears, cords, all kinds of crazy stuff. I have worked on so many thousands of people. I've seen so much, but I have never seen somebody's field look like that beautiful rainbow chart. And so when we receive information, when we get it intuitively, we can kind of imagine that chart coming from the top down. So we could get an inspired idea, let's say that comes right from heaven, from God, right down into our crown chakra. That idea starts to become more dense and it travels down to our third eye, the center of our forehead. And we start to get those ideas. We start to use our intuition a little bit. We have more thoughts around it. It travels down to our throat. This is where we speak our truth. So the message starts to come out of us, right? When you have an idea and you're like, maybe I'll tell a friend or two. And it starts to kind of come into fruition. Then it drops down into our heart. This is where we give and receive unconditional love. We start to put that message out there. This is also an energy center I often see blown out in many entrepreneurs, especially women, because I primarily only work with women, because sometimes women can overgive. They can give too much to the point of exhaustion. They can have no boundaries. They can try to give to prove themselves and their worthiness. So we can get these blocks here right up at the top, and then the energy never gets a chance to travel downward. So if it does travel downward into our upper belly, that's our solar plexus. This is our trust center. This is, we put our will into the world and we can really we get that feeling in our body. And then the energy travels all the way down to the lower belly, second chakra. This is our creative center. So we have new ways to essentially energetically birth our ideas into the world. This is where our womb space is. This is where that sacred feminine. And for those of you who are listening, obviously you get it. The divine feminine has risen. And so we are all being called to serve at a higher level and really express that. And we all have masked feminine energies, but it's also helping that second chakra. This is really that birthing that next idea into the world. And then finally, your first chakra, which is around safety, security, finances, and there can be family stuff in there as well. So if we are blocked somewhere in our upper chakras, the energy doesn't get a chance to travel down. So as entrepreneurs, we're always focusing on making a bigger impact and making more money. Some of the times that we can't do those next steps is because we're simply just blocked and out of alignment. And the energy centers really are so powerful and they give so much information. So when I work with folks one-on-one, I might start to feel energy coming in and, I might be in, let's say, the solar plexus and it's the trust center and something about a team member shows up like, oh, is there a team member that maybe is not working out so well? And it's like, they're shocked that I even picked up on that, but it's in their energy field. And so I don't need to know necessarily their whole business story to understand where they are specifically blocked. And if our stress and anxiety and all the things that are kind of weighing on us on a daily basis as business owners is not addressed, if it's left unattended, it can leave us feeling really icky. And then we will treat these icky feelings with things like food, alcohol, whatever, to just treat the symptoms and make ourselves feel temporarily better versus really getting into the root and clearing the energy, moving it, releasing the stress from our body and energy field to actually get back into serving our highest level. It's like we just put makeup on, we're like, we're good, but you're not good. And people can feel that energy no matter how great you look on camera. We can feel that energy. And that's what sometimes is repelling customers from us or from the things that we want to do. It's kind of distancing us.
Yeah. What type of situations do you commonly see with the women who come in your door, physically or virtually, as you work with them? Like what are you typically looking at? Are they in a situation where they're having challenges, or they're just looking for something different?
So most of my one-on-one work is with women who are really successful, quite successful in their business. Things are looking great, but they are not able to really trust in themselves, trust in their instincts, trust in their intuition. They are sometimes burnt out because they're running on a sort of male dominant energy. And so they're wanting to get into the feminine flow of things. So that's what I typically see a lot of with my one-on-ones. I had previously run some mastermind groups. And while those things are common as well, the issues with many of the mastermind clients were really around visibility and consistency and confidence, being able to really ground themselves in who they are, like, that pumping your chest out, like, here I am, that energy, being able to share that into the world in a really authentic way, in a consistent way, and not to constantly self-doubt and second guess themselves and get overwhelmed and like want to throw up their hands in the air and give up on everything, So there's a lot of entrepreneurs who suffer with that confidence and visibility and trust issues.
Mm-hmm. I remember as I was going, so my path was a little bit different. So my 20s was trying everything from teaching aerobics to selling vitamins from my bicycle to working in a publishing company. So I was obviously looking for something, right? And didn't really have a spiritual path, but 20s was just trying a lot of stuff on. In my 30s is when something happened, like a switch flipped. And it was like I was introduced to someone who did just kind of a basic, I guess you'd call it psychic reading on me. But just something kind of flipped. And I was suddenly so interested in, actually, is this how humans really work? Should we really be, we're really actually wired for this stuff. And I started just learning more and becoming so enamored with the humanness that we actually are. And then though, my business started taking off. And so I was in that kind of beautiful place, like doing things my way and following what I felt. And it was all working great. And then I got sucked into an internet marketing mastermind with 21 guys. And I'm giving this because you can see where this is going. Yep. And everything, they were like, wow, what you're doing is amazing. Now, like, double it, And I was like, okay, and so like, instead of doing 2 workshops a year, I did 4 workshops a year. And then I hired all this team, and then I did all this stuff because I was like, oh, this is fun. And I felt so blessed. And so I should just keep going with this, and it's all working. And then part of the story, I got to this point that I'm like, oh my God, is it okay to say this doesn't feel good? Is it okay? I mean, I like the money, don't get me wrong, but like, it was just all so complicated. And I felt, you used a word before that just stayed with me, very disconnected. My business had suddenly become very disconnected. And that was a hard decision for me to make a change on, though, because I saw clients, though, still getting great results. Things were happening, but I personally did not feel as good not being so in the business and having it aligned with who I was personally. So there was a real struggle there for several years. And now, though, I'm so rebuilding that the way I want to, from who I am and where I am. And I wonder, do you think, or do you see a lot more of this happening, or do you see that happening with a lot of the women coming in? Like they've started to build something in the way that, that it may be working wonderfully, but something's off.
100%, every single one of them. And it's a good thing though, because this energy of saying, I don't think this is working for me right now, or something is a little off, is like the first awakening. And once you start to realize that, like when you're in a mastermind with all those men and this masculine energy, and there's something and you're like, there's something is off, and you give yourself permission to make that choice to say, I don't want to do this, or I'm no longer going to offer that, and understanding sort of the depth of why that matters to you, you can really start to express who you truly are. I mean, I think we were put into these places so that we could be challenged in that way. I was part of a mastermind that was very similar. While it wasn't mostly men, it was run by a man, and the masculine energy was like intense in that same way. And I think we've all been under this like illusion, and it's like this male marketing. I know people call it bro marketing, but I don't really call it that. But I mean, we have all these really masculine leaders showing marketing strategies, business strategies, and what works for them. It's fine. And we often will internalize it, especially as women, but I think I could speak for men and women or anybody, is that we might think that somebody's strategy is awesome. And we're like, hey, it got them to 6, 7, 8 figures, whatever it was. But what we start to do is we internalize it. And if it didn't work for us, we make it mean something negative about us. We're broken. We messed up. We didn't do it. We're messed up. But what's really happening is that that person is on their own unique life path, and that worked for them. And so are you. You're all on your own unique life path. And so what got them to 6, 7, 8, whatever figures is not the exact formula that's going to get you there or beyond. And we have to throw out those formulas and start to listen inside of us, because there might be components. And I'm not saying don't mastermind, don't listen to strategy. What I am saying is like, take it, digest it, and then like kind of maybe spit out or toss to the side the things that don't resonate with you and that don't work for you or your energy or your customers, or that feel heavy or tight or constricting, or like, oh, I really want to do this, but I hate doing this thing. I just can't. Like, okay, can you just give yourself permission to not
don't do the thing? And I had someone, and this was years ago, VIP day. Someone just burst into tears. She's like, I hate webinars. And I said, well, don't do them. do something different.
Right. And you are a genius, Allie. You gave her the most genius advice, right? Because you just gave her permission not to do it. And it's funny, I just did my very first webinar. I've always done these live launches because that was what was easy and light for me. And one of my girlfriends was like, wait a minute, you're just doing your first webinar right now? I'm like, yeah.
Usually that's the starter pack, right? Usually.
Right. It is the starter pack, but like me, I do everything ass backwards. So when I was actually building my webinar, I was looking at other people's templates and models, and I was like, I hate this. I don't like that. This feels gross. I can't possibly say this. You could not pay me enough to make this slide. Like, it was all of that kind of thing. And, you know, and then kind of just, again, like squeezing out a sponge, like none of this stuff really needs to stay. I need to do what really lights me up and makes me feel joyful. And one of the strategies I share with my clients is around connecting energetically with your soulmate client. So even if you sit in a simple, like you're sitting at your desk, you don't have, doesn't have to be fancy. And you can just connect for a moment with your higher self and create a beautiful space for yourself to do your highest work. When you call in your higher self, then call in your highest soulmate client. And you can ask that soulmate client what it is they want to hear from you, what it is they need to listen from you so that they can say yes, or to sign up for your thing, or to connect with you more deeply that day. And there's nothing that I do when I, you know, whether it's writing an email or putting together a webinar or a Facebook post or whatever it is, without first connecting with my soulmate client and really genuinely concerned for her. Because my soulmate client, and just like everybody listening, we all have somebody who needs the message from us on any given day. And they're out there suffering in silence. And they're not out there going, hey, can anybody help me with this thing? They're just silently suffering. And so if we can connect to that energy of our soulmate client and deliver what is that they require, it's serving both of us. And, you know, that's what I want to do every day. I want to serve at my highest level to help others do the same.
Mm-hmm. So when you work with clients, is it typically like one session, or they work with you ongoing? What does this look like?
Yeah, I used to do the one-off sessions, and then people just would be like, well, let me do like 3. And then I stopped doing them entirely. because I was focusing on group work. And I actually just started bringing back the one-on-ones that people can work with me one-on-one, but I see the best results with my clients who do usually around a 6-month package. So we see each other every month. I teach them more about trusting their intuition. I teach them all kinds of really beautiful skill sets to really develop whatever it is that they are doing. And then I also do the healing sessions for them every single month, which can sometimes crack them wide open, even the first session, and address some deep-seated issues that have been maybe old issues that have been going on for a long time. I see all kinds of repetitive things, as you could imagine. Some of them can be, like speak when you're spoken to, some old thoughts around you have to earn your way, money doesn't grow on trees, a lot of old Catholic school guilt. There's all kinds of fascinating things that are repetitively blocking people, but I do love working with people in series of sessions over a course of time. 6 months is usually like, oh, I see them just explode after that. I love it.
In my mind, and this is part humor, but maybe not or satire, I'm thinking of this series of like meditations you could purchase from you or sessions that are like all related to our types of businesses, like healing from your team. And then like launch PTSD recovery. I think you should have like, just for the fun of it, oh my God, this would be hysterical. Have like a menu of all these like topics that everybody goes like, oh my gosh, exactly.
Yes. Well, I mean, so like it is funny, but it's also true. And that's literally what my membership is. So it's all meditations and energy healings for entrepreneurs around stress, around launching, around visibility, around abundance wounds, like all of that.
Perfect.
It's like, and I taught this class today, and it's like, even if we try listening to Calm app or Headspace, it's good that it gets you calm and it's good that it brings you into this present moment. But those apps are not designed for business owners. And we have a very unique blend of stressors. And so we need to address them on a regular basis. So one of the energy healings that I love is healing abundance wounds. And you wouldn't believe the stuff that comes up for people when listening to those meditations. It's like, oh my gosh, I had no idea that was in there. Once you know, it's like you can't unring a bell. You just have this knowing, and you can be aware of where you can get yourself tripped up, and you no longer have these little blind spots. It's really powerful.
Oh, I love it. Now, I know that you're a fan of crystals as well. Talk to us about crystals.
Yeah, I love crystals. They are my friends. When I first started teaching more about crystals, I taught this meditation where you kind of get absorbed into the energy of each crystal, and you can get messages from crystals. I use crystals really intentionally. So for example, I was at your event in November at Iconic, and I wear crystals in my bra because they help me to hold an intention, hold my space, to hold my alignment. Because, as fun as it is to meet all these great entrepreneurs and have these great connections and listen and learn and expand and feel, it can be really strenuous for your energy field. So I wear crystals on me to help hold that container. I also wear it when I'm speaking or with clients. When I'm with clients specifically, I have like a smorgasbord of different types of crystals, but typically with each client session, a specific crystal will ask to work with me. And what I mean by that is, like if you're picking out your outfit for the day and all of a sudden you're like, ooh, I love that red blazer or whatever it is that you haven't worn for a while, it like brings your attention to it. It's the same for me. And I obviously am very rooted down to earth. And it's not like my crystals are speaking in another language. It's just that I get curious. It draws me in. And so when I do pick up that crystal for that person, sometimes I will literally Google, like, what's the meaning of this specific crystal? And I can share that message. But interestingly, more times than not, the crystal message and its presence has something very specific to share with that person once we get started. And it's always very specific. It's just great. And so we can use crystals to program for our own self, for our container. We can use them for our customers, our clients. We can also use crystals intentionally in a grid. So example, like if you have like I mentioned, my membership, I have a crystal grid for my membership. So the crystal grid is intended to hold powerful energy for all of the members and to attract the right people to it and to bring in more wealth and prosperity and health and healing and et cetera. But I don't have to hold that space every single day, all night.
How do you make a grid? I've heard of that, but I don't understand what a crystal grid is.
For the sake of this conversation, really quickly. So I always clear my crystals first, either by taking them outside in moonlight / sunlight / saltwater bath / intending to clear them. Mm-hmm. And then I bring them in and I select one for the center stone that's kind of like the pillar grounding in the middle. Mm-hmm. And then I build sort of like a geometric shape pattern outside of it. So each layer, sometimes there's basically a grid can be 2 or more crystals put together with an intention. It's kind of like a mastermind. 2 or more people.
Okay. But there's like one anchor stone typically.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah. I usually have one in the middle, and then I will call in sort of what's that next energy that's ready to come in, and I'll be intuitively guided to the next crystal. So maybe it's, 4 rose quartz crystals, and I'll put them one across from the other, like north, south, east, and west. And then I'll call on what's the next crystal that wants to come in. And maybe it is black tourmaline, which is very protective and absorbs negative energy. And maybe there's a next one, which is an amethyst, which is bringing in more energy for healing and connection. There's no like right or wrong way to build a grid. It's always different depending on what you're building it for. And sometimes it can be a simple intention of, opening up to that next level of prosperity, or it can be for a specific program or offering.
Okay, cool. One last crystal question. Sorry. Sure. Where do you buy your crystals? There's shops around here, but they're so, I think they're super marked up. I don't know. Like if we wanted to really get into buying more and doing some things with the crystals, what do you recommend?
Yeah, I would definitely start at your local shops and support those small businesses. But there are so many wonderful gem shows out there. I have sourced even crystals from Amazon. Like I bought like 3 pounds of mixed types of crystals from Amazon.
And you know that they're real, they're not fake?
Mm-hmm, yeah, you can look at the reviews from the vendors.
Okay.
The trouble with Amazon is you don't know if they're ethically sourced and like where they came from. And, the good news is when you shop locally, a lot of times those vendors are very conscious of where the crystals have come from. And also, like, if you think about when you travel, you kind of pick up on some funky energy along the way. So do crystals. So, people are usually very mindful of where they came from and how they were sourced and bringing them to you in a really ethical way. You can do that. I mean, it's different for everybody because some people live in areas that there aren't stores that they can buy from. So there are some really wonderful online shops, Etsy shops that you can get crystals from. I always love to be in person because as much as you are at a store shopping for your crystal, the crystal is also picking you.
Yeah. There's one up here in Cave Creek. I don't know if you've been to it. It's called Rare Earth Gallery. It's like one of the largest crystal boutiques. Like it's like a showroom. They have giant geodes and also small stones. And so I took my daughter in there because she was really interested. And kids know, man, she just walked around. She was drawn to like, I said, listen, you can pick out 4 or 5 and on the smaller side, we don't need to build like something giant in your room. And, she just knew and felt it. And there is something about going in person for sure. That you kind of like have your radar is on. You're like, and like you're drawn to some of the stones versus the others. So I just encourage everyone, visit those shops because it's true. Then you feel called to the stones. And
yeah. And I would definitely, I'm glad that you brought your daughter to get crystals. And I think kids, especially now, are very sensitive, especially, if you're sensitive, your kids are probably sensitive. And it's a really good idea to have crystals and to sort of teach them how to work with them. Kids can put them in their pocket. Obviously I buy my kids crystals, but there was this one crystal called Jet. It was this black polished oval. And I was really drawn to it for a client, but then it also was like, also get me for your centrist. And I'm like, okay, so I'll do that. So sometimes they will give you a little message or who they need to be given to. But it's great to have crystals with you. Your kids can wear like little bracelets that have small crystals on it, so they're kind of like blended in. But that's a great way to help the kids process their stress and the things that they're feeling on a daily basis as well.
Well, Emily, before I ask my last question, tell everyone where they can follow you, where they should go, your website, all that.
Thank you. My website is my name, EmilyAarons.com. And we are putting the final touches on my brand new Abundance Power Duo meditation. So you mentioned like, there should be a meditation for that. There is, and that's what it is. And I probably mostly hang out on Instagram, and it's Emily Aarons on Instagram. The rest of the social links can easily be found on my website, but also the Aligned and Unstoppable podcast. Those are sort of the main 3 places that you'll find me.
Great. All right. Last 3 pieces of advice for all the women listening around the world.
Yes. So this kind of ties into what we were talking about. So my first piece is that people are always going to judge you. So you don't need anybody else's approval. This goes for parents, friends, peers, mentors, which leads me to number 2, which is stop trying to prove yourself and you are worthy. I know for me, part of that motivation to hit that 6-figure milestone was a part to do with qualifying for a mastermind. And I really wanted to be like in the in crowd. And what I realized once I was there was like, I don't need to prove myself. And I realized that kind of too late. So I wanted to share that piece of advice. I think that it's normal to have that, but I also just really want to share that we don't have to prove ourselves. And 3, if you notice you're following someone else's path, it's probably not yours. So if there's a strategy template, I always say to drop in, we kind of talked about that, and scan what's in your highest alignment. So calling your soulmate client, what do they need from you and what feels light, what feels good? And keep doing that, because that will always lead you to innovation, and you'll be able to trust your intuitive instincts and feel so good about the choices that you make and not feeling like you're kind of just ripping somebody off or following what they did. It just feels so refreshing.
I love that. Hey, and bring some crystals to the creative strategy workshop. Help us be more creative. All right.
Yeah.
Well, now I know you're going to hide some in your bra at the same time, but we know.
Yes.
So we know you have them.
Yes. She's going to like shake me down. Give it to me.
Upside down and like all these crystals fall out. Yeah. But let's get creative. Whatever you could bring or do to help us. That would be fantastic.
I absolutely will. I'll bring some new ones too, for sure.
All right. Emily, thank you so much. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Allie.
Bye. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Glambition Radio. If you enjoyed the show, make sure you subscribe so you automatically get my new shows every week. Also, I'd love if you left us a review so more women like you can discover us. We're on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Pandora, and other major platforms. And I'd love to hear from you personally. Come join the conversation on social. Instagram is my happy place lately, and that's Allie Brown Official, but you can find links to my other platforms at alliebrown.com. Glambition Radio is the elevated conversation for women leaders, and I'm honored you tuned in.